Fender. Springer. Okay. So, the chair calls up House Bill 1183 by Roberts and recognizes the author to lay out the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, we're about to have a blast with this bill.
Oh, you're going to do just fine.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 1183. This bill gives county commissioners the tools to determine the hours fireworks may be used in unincorporated areas. In our committee overview meetings, we heard from various county officials explaining that the 254 counties in Texas all have unique needs. The law we pass as the legislature can have a substantial impact on the quality of life for people at the county level. House Bill 1183 is designed to address a quality of life issue in my district, which is 98% unincorporated, and all similar communities. Currently, there is no authority for any governmental entity to restrict the hours that fireworks may be used in unincorporated areas. Unfortunately, this leaves many of my neighbors without a place to turn when people choose to pop firecrackers into the early mornings. Imagine if you owned your home for 2 decades, then a neighbor who could be an event center, for example, decides to offer fireworks at their home as part of their services that last past midnight. Now imagine the frustration in trying to sleep through these fireworks shows with no way of addressing the issue. My predecessor and I have received hundreds of calls, and I have sat through many community meetings where constituents begged us to provide a solution. Today, you will also hear testimony describing experiencing facing this quality of life issue. House Bill 1183 provides a remedy by giving county commissioner courts the authority to regulate the hours of use. My bill allows 2 exceptions, an exception for holidays as well as a permitting process which allows a person to apply for a permit to pop fireworks during a prohibited time. This bill makes a violation under this subsection a Class C misdemeanor, punishable by up to $500 fine. Now, I want to emphasize, and this really is important, that I do not have any issue with the sale or use of fireworks. I just don't think it's right that cities have the authority to sensibly regulate fireworks, but unincorporated areas are left in the dark to fend for themselves. Unincorporated areas face a unique set of needs. That is why giving local officials ordinance-making authority is the best solution to this problem. With that, I would entertain any questions. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, I would like to reserve the right to close.
Yes, and thank you for bringing this bill in front of the committee. We have several witness affirmation forms of people who would like to testify. Laurie Christensen from the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office. Would you please come up and state your name and who you represent for the record and your position on the bill?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. Laurie Christensen, Assistant Chief of the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office, and I'm here to talk in favor of the bill. This is a very simple bill, as was stated earlier. It is here to regulate the use during certain hours and has no impact on the sales or the sales dates of fireworks. It gives the local option of display times for its constituents and has no impact on the days of the use. Counties, such as Harris County, have become more diverse and more populated. The use of fireworks beyond the seasonal times has become more apparent. The displays that occur late into the evening of neighborhoods preparing for work and school days have resulted in an increased number of disturbance calls from citizens for noise and emitted light. This bill is actually being brought as a response to the citizens' request to protect the public health, safety, quality, and welfare of life. Again, I'd like to reiterate this bill is a permissive only to regulate display times. There is no impact to the sale days or the use of the fireworks. And I thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions.
That's right. It's not a big deal for me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Members, do you have any questions? Thank you for being here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. The chair calls John Zitzman, the office of Constable Mark Herman. And would you please state, for Harris County Precinct 4, would you please state your name and who you represent for the record?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is John Zitzman. I'm an Assistant Chief with Mark Herman's Precinct 4 Constable's Office. We're the largest constabulary in the United States with 550 law enforcement officers providing service to over 1 million residents of North Harris County.
Thank you for being here. And
Hey.
state your position on the bill. And
Mark Herman's office, I'm here to support Mark Herman. I'm here to support the bill. We think it's a wonderful opportunity, and thank you for reminding, Chairman, about how the city and the county operate differently in this environment. As a former middle manager, as a Houston homicide lieutenant, I have an entire career's worth of great stories of providing great service and solving great crimes. And I think what troubles me most about this one is my inability in this circumstance to provide a better quality of life for the people who have to put up with these venues who launch these devices all hours of night. And it does create just a terrible quality of life issue. It's unfortunate that the people, the citizens of Houston, Texas, don't have to tolerate this, like you said, a safety issue and a quality of life issue. And unfortunately, these venues are moving up in Harris County, and it does create a safety issue and a quality of life issue, and we appreciate the empowering the counties too.
I may live in the city, but I'm also a resident of Harris County.
Correct.
And so, I have to, I think we all have to understand that everybody doesn't have the same benefits, but we're all residents of the same county. And we all should be able to, just like if we're talking about Fort Bend County, that is a part of Houston. The other people and residents of Fort Bend County ought to be able to avail themselves, if they would like, of the same types of protections there are in Houston, just like in the same in Harris County.
Thank you. And as a professional law enforcement officer, Mr. Chairman, we take great pride in being able to solve people's problems, and it's tough to be a manager in this organization, go to these HOA meetings and listen to their concerns, and not being able to solve this very simple problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Representative Stickland.
Oh, sir.
How many calls do you think you get for noise complaints or what have you outside of New Year's Eve, the 4th of July, things
That's a
like
great
that,
question, and I did
that are
do the
fireworks
research.
related?
The ones, the statistics I brought with me were the 36-hour period on December 31st and the 36-hour period on 4th of July. So it really doesn't answer your question. I apologize. But the answer to that, going back 3 years, was 1,009 calls for service over that 6-day period.
Over that 6-day period.
That's correct, sir.
Is it a problem outside of that, do you think?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And one
To that same degree?
Not to the same degree as if you were getting a call from 100,000 residents on a particular special holiday. But it does create a serious issue for people who can't escape it. They can't get in their cars, drive away. Usually we want to drive to a venue and enjoy a fireworks display. We don't want to go home after a long day of work and listen to a fireworks display.
And do you think it's safe to assume that people know I've sat on county affairs every time I've been here in the legislature and special purpose districts, and
Yes.
I learned very quickly that Harris County is different than any other area of the state with your ESD overlays and development. I mean, I don't even begin to understand the hundreds of different layers
Right.
that y'all have established, but it works for you, and I won't argue with it.
Thank you, Mr.
But
Strickland.
my mother's side of the family actually is from Representative Roberts' district, and huh? I'll ask her. I don't know. I really don't know. No, she didn't vote for Patricia, but that was before you. But it's very clear that fireworks are almost a part of the life down there. There's fireworks stands all over the place. I remember as a kid getting excited when we got close to Grandpa's house because there's fireworks stands everywhere. It
Correct.
just seems to be part of the culture, and I can't imagine there being too much of a shock of a resident that, hey, there's probably going to be fireworks going off everywhere in this general area
Well,
on...
If I could disagree with Mr. Strickland, I think growing up as an American and enjoying the patriotic fireworks on 4th of July and on New Year's Eve, I think we became acclimated to getting used to having fireworks displays twice a year. I would not characterize Harris County as a place where we do this 365 days a year. I think it's limited to a particular number of days and events.
And I just need to do something right quick, because since I'm all discombobulated, I forgot to ask Representative Roberts to, I don't know if I did or didn't, so House Bill 1183, and you've already explained it, so just lay it out. And as you explained, and as our witness is explaining, he's testifying on House Bill 1183, in case I didn't do that.
Thanks, sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Continue.
Yeah.
But no, sir, I wouldn't share your same thoughts on that. We do have a holiday season twice a year. We recognize that. We look forward to it. We enjoy it. The bill permits for those, and also permits for other occasions throughout the year. But no, I wouldn't characterize.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Because I've heard this bill and many versions of it over the years now. On page 1, do you have the bill in front of you?
Yes,
sir?
sir, I
I'm
do.
sorry. On page 1, line 13, the order may include. Would you be interested in moving it to a shall include an exemption for certain time frame around days? And I know you're not the bill author, but
Correct. I feel uncomfortable answering his behalf, but
yeah,
actually,
but you understand. I mean,
the
you're
difference
telling me
between
there's
shall
a
and-
provision that allows for that, but the way that it's written right now, it's may include, which doesn't means the county could come out and fully ban it on those days and times. It suggests with the may and the fact that it's written out that they would have understanding for it, but not necessarily.
I would like to think there was a built-in option that they would give consideration for a fireworks display outside of the normal holiday period. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Members, do you have any additional questions of Mr. Zeitzman? Is that correct?
Zitzman's fine. Yes, sir.
Zitzman, any additional questions? Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you, Mr.
here.
Chairman.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mr.
And thanks for traveling here. The chair calls Robert Wilburn with the Champions Creek Homeowners Association and representing himself. I have friends that live in your area, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm going to let this handout kind of get passed out before I get started, if you don't mind.
Friends that I grew up with in Third Ward that moved to Champions.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Robert Wilburn. I am a board member of Champions Creek Homeowner Association, and I'm in favor of HB 1183. Houston, we have a problem. If you live in the unincorporated areas of Harris County near an event center called Chateau Cocomar, you would understand what I'm talking about. In your handout today, you're going to see a picture of a home that was under construction for about 4 years. A doctor was building it, and he lost it to foreclosure, and a couple came in, purchased it for $3.5 million, spent another $1 million on it, or $1.5 million, and converted it to an event center. Now, we in the neighborhood were looking forward to having the extremely nice home at the end of Champions Drive. That borders Champions Country Club and Ravenel Country Club, and it's a very fluent area of town. What you're going to see is that we as a board met with the commissioner to express our concerns regarding the added traffic, the sound, etc. He convened a group of people from Harris County and everything else, and we met, and they answered our needs, and they were speaking with the developer or the new buyer at the time, and we sat down and tried to come up with a good neighbor policy about noise, traffic, etc. This started off fine for about the first 6 months, and then the next thing that we know, fireworks started going off at 1 o'clock in the morning at the end of weddings. We didn't think about fireworks. That was never on our agenda when we sat down and spoke to them. This community that I live in, if you'll go to there's several pages of photographs. The first one is a higher view. The second one, you'll see where the location is, and you can still see a lot of the subdivisions to the left and right. And then the third one is a kind of a close-up to our property line to Champions Creek and to the actual Chateau Cocamar itself. We have people that have bedrooms about 50 yards from the back of that building. And they have let loose with fireworks over the last several years. And we've called, and Harris County has fielded a number of calls. The people that live in this community are, especially on this back row, have been there for many years, in fact. They're probably an average age of about 72 to 75 years of age. A lot of these people are elderly women that go to bed early at night, 8 or 8:30, and then all of a sudden when the fireworks start going off, their pets wake up, they start barking, they start calling Harris County, they call the constable's office and sheriff's office. We tried to go back to the owner of the event center just on a person-to-person basis and ask them to kind of start, work with us. Don't, change the hours of these things, do them earlier. And their business was building up, and we basically were told that it's legal, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. And as a result, there was a lot of hard feelings between the entity, and then things came to a head in April of 2016. There was a wedding there. Actually, it was a football player from the University of Texas that plays in the NFL today. That's in there as well. And at 2:30 in the morning, it sounded like Baghdad was getting bombed. It woke up people in subdivisions over a mile away. And this barrage lasted for close to 20 to 30 minutes at that time. And that's whenever everything came to a head. The phone calls increased dramatically to the commissioner, to the fire marshal, to the sheriff's department, to the constable department. What we're asking for is some type of relief as far as the hours are concerned. Either the proximity to an existing neighborhood, because we were there 30, 35, 40 years ago, and they've only been there since 2011. We need something to regulate the hours at a minimum. We're not saying eliminate them. July the 4th, Christmas, all of that, we can agree with that. We fly the flags in our neighborhoods. People have kids, grandchildren that come over. They pop fireworks in the street. I don't have a problem with that. But you can't have a community to where it really is something that the neighbors cannot even go to sleep over there, and then their pets again start barking. And these elderly women and elderly couples just don't go back to bed then, and then all of a sudden my phone's lit up for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We had a town hall meeting. It was attended by about 150 people, and I saw some of the people that testified here today were actually there, and they kept telling everybody, says, we have no alternative. And we came to an agreement with Chateau Cocamar, a verbal agreement, to where they would start limiting the discharging of the fireworks. That's just a handshake. Folks, there's a divorce going on in that situation right now. So I don't know if they're going to sell it and somebody else buys it, but we're going to have to go back to square one if that be the case. And we're asking for some type of relief or some type of regulation on a local basis to where the Commissioner's Court or Precinct 4 could write some type of regulation as far as the discharge hours. I grew up popping fireworks all my life and enjoyed it, and my son did the same thing. But this is a commercial venture right in the middle of the Champions area in northwest Harris County. Any questions?
Representative Stickland.
I'm sorry, do you have a homeowners association in here?
Yes, sir.
And there's nothing that they can do?
No, sir. What happens is they were an unrestricted property. It's too long of a story to get into, but part of that land that house sits on was actually a part of our association, but it got traded off about 20, 25 years ago. There was a deed restriction placed against that property, of which a very small, minute portion of the house sits on it. And we did the legal research on it and everything else, and we felt that we could spend a lot of money and not win the case. So we decided to let's become a good neighbor, shook hands, met the owner there, and they had an open house for us to show us the home. I'd watched it under construction for years, and it just didn't work out. I mean, everything that they said that they were going to do has changed. Since April the 16th, and whenever a lot of pressure has been put back on them, they're more responsive. But again, anybody can open up a event center near residences the way it is in Harris County today in the unincorporated areas and do the same thing to the residents.
Additional questions? Representative Vice Chair Spring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, and one of the things I always try to tell people, you know, anywhere is, you know, if you do something that becomes beyond common sense, get ready for the legislature to get involved. Used to be able that if your buffalo got out and got on somebody else, you could shoot it until somebody said, hey, it's my right, and I shot 52 of them at one time. And then we came back, and now that law has been changed. So, you know, sometimes people sort of they push things beyond what's normal and good neighborly. We get involved.
Members, any additional questions? I do have some questions,
Yes, sir.
reading the stories. If, you know, looking at this, it appears as if you may have a lot of noise nuisances along with fireworks, others that occur. Are there other disturbances to the people who live near the chateau?
At the chateau?
Yes.
We've had some. A majority of it has been the fireworks. The fireworks start animals barking. And being in a subdivision where there's a lot of retired people, a lot of people have pets. And so the people that are on the very back row that are immediately adjacent to the chateau itself, the sounds are coming over, but we worked out a deal to where they're actually sending employees of the catering deal outside with sound meters on their phone, and it's gotten better. I mean, we as a board tried to head this off because I'm in real estate. I could see what was fixing to happen. I already had appraisers calling me. This was all over the news in Harris County, and they said, "What the heck is going on over there?" And I said, I tried to keep it quiet and work it behind the scenes, and it got out, and it's hurt the value of our homes.
Right. We had it. Y'all heard me talk about not in my mother's backyard. We had the same thing happen with the person who owned the house behind her. And they opened an events place in their home. And so, I mean, it was right on her back of her house. And, these are things that it's very hard to deal with when somebody starts making a living off something because they don't want to compromise at all because they think it affects their bottom line.
Oh, absolutely. And I heard the comment earlier, one of the questions was how many other deals besides fireworks have you had or whatever, and he said it was over 1,000. I bet 950 came from this facility. It really has. These people have called and called and called, and I feel sorry for our law enforcement out there, but the law enforcement understands and they feel sorry for the people because there's just no mechanism to control anything. And I'm not about regulation, but this is something that needs to be looked at.
Wow. It is a challenge, and if this has become a commonplace facility for very wealthy people to have wedding ceremonies and receptions, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
We've had elephants walking down Champions Drive coming in there for a 3-day wedding event that took place. International stars have had parties there. There's some of the handouts you'll be able to read it about what I'm talking about there.
I'm reading.
So it's an interesting it's a beautiful facility, but we were sick that it didn't stay as a private residence, and the Dr. Peterson lost it, and we wanted to make sure that it didn't become vacant and vagrants live there or anything of that nature. And that's why we tried to have a good neighbor policy between our subdivision and the owner of the event, and it got out of hand with the fireworks.
Okay. Well, I mean, I understand your concern. And that's right. Y'all you have to understand we are, as Representative Stickland said, we are very unique and very different in Harris County, Houston, and around.
Well, I understand.
And that's why this is important because homeowners association can't do anything about it. And the same thing that happened with the special events venue, concert venue in Houston, it could go to the city council and they could do something by ordinance, but in your situation, there's nothing that can be done without the ability to.
We have there's no trigger or mechanism.
I have none. So we appreciate that as a circumstance. Thanks. Any other questions of Mr. Wilburn?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The chair calls P.T. Pat Calhoun, Goliad County. I'm all right. Go. See you later. Please state your name and who you represent for the record.
My name is Pat Calhoun. I'm the county judge, Goliad County. The only reason I'm up here to speak for it is because I would like to thank for you for looking at this as an option to the counties. We're a very small rural county. As a matter of fact, Vice Chair Springer, when you were talking about on your bill with the address issue or how, my wife was a Texas resident with a Texas driver's license, but it had a New Mexico address on it. You know, because that was the closest town that delivered mail. So there it is. But the fireworks bill, we on the other hand are exactly opposite of Harris County and Houston and all of that. We're a very small rural county. We've got 7,500 people in the county, of which about 2,000 actually live in the incorporated city of Goliad. So there's a lot of folks that live in little smaller communities that are out. It's not a problem because most of the kids that would be out popping firecrackers have either got their parents or their grandparents saying, go to bed, it's time to shut up and go to bed, we got church tomorrow. So that's not really much of a problem with us, but it could be. The issue with animals, horses are terrified by those kind of things. Dogs start barking, pretty soon you got coyotes howling, pretty soon you got all kind of pandemonium running around. It's not an issue right now, but the fact that you're making it optional too, if it becomes an issue, is really nice, and I appreciate that effort. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Vice Chair Springer.
Pat, I appreciate being here, and I'm glad you are, because one of the things I talked to the representative about is bracketing this bill to either just Harris County or counties above 500,000. So I'm thinking about our small counties. So I think on the other side it says, okay, so I've got a guy who has 10,000 acres and he decides, daughter's got an engagement party, wants to shoot fireworks off. To be able to tell him no when nobody else besides him and his cows are going to care about it is really sort of taking, I think, overreach of where I would want to see things at. And so, so I do have a little bit of concern because, like you said, it's not a problem. I've never heard this being a problem because, like you said, one, because it usually is just kids and they get a limited supply, so it's not like we have an event center out there sitting outside of Munster, sitting outside of Goliad, just outside of town, that's doing this, every night at 2 a.m. in the morning,
right?
Type of situation. So it's also one of those where, fortunate or unfortunate, we do come back every 2 years, and so I may want us to try to think about bracketing it. Then as other residents find out it's available in the larger areas, we may find out that they really wish we hadn't have done that, and we could change it. But any thoughts different than I've just sort of expressed that you might think about on that?
No, I fully feel, to quote a former president, I feel your pain on that kind of thing. But it's not an issue with us at this point. Yeah. And the fact that it's optional to the Commissioner's Court. In my town, I promise you, every citizen in Goliad knows their commissioner and the judge. We've got one grocery store and we have one auto parts place. They all know us. They know where my house is. They know my phone number. If there's an issue, I'm going to hear about it. And it's not an issue at this point. Right. But the fact that it is an optional, that it gives the commissioners the ability to do something if a problem arrives is what makes it nice.
Generally, it's the fact that we're taking a right away from either a individual or just a couple individuals. It makes it easier for Commissioner's Court to potentially be able to do that, especially if they, have got one guy I've got a problem with. The court can easily
vote of three,
be able to do that to one individual in one of these rural ones just because they had a personal issue going on. And and so that's sort of my, both sides of that equation on there.
Yes, sir. And the fact of carving out, like Harris County specifically are fine. I mean, that's fine with us because it's not an issue.
I think we got more problem. I mean, especially it's not the light from them. It's the bangs, and you go and incorporated your county, my county. It's more people are going to go shoot shotguns out in the middle of nighttime, or go coyote hunting and that.
Yes,
it's
sir.
a bigger issue of loud noises going off than it is fireworks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let me add something to this, though. When it comes to public displays of fireworks in the city of Houston, you have to get a permit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to the city to get a permit. So that is how it's regulated. You can still do them. It's just that the city council has to approve you doing them. And so that would be these big fireworks displays that I think we're talking about here. And the difference is that the county doesn't have that option to approve or not approve of what we would call a public display of fireworks. That would be as loud or large as around the corner from my house, although I don't mind it. The University of Houston puts off fireworks into football games. And we don't mind. It's loud, but they have a permit to do it. So what I would say is that might be one of the things here. I don't know if I know some places in this area of the state between Travis and Bexar County, they've done where it's a noise nuisance because there are concerts that are done in facilities that have bought that land, and it is the middle of nowhere, but it still has a nuisance value for the people around it. So I think that there's some way that we can look at this, because everybody in any county or any area, it's not a problem till it happens. And it will probably, unfortunately, happen. So I doubt that most of the time in the city of Houston, fireworks displays that are safe, good fireworks displays are hardly ever denied. Believe it or not, they go on all the time. But people know when they're going to go on, and matter of fact, it's really good for our community because people go out and are able to experience safe, good fireworks displays. So with that, Representative Biederman.
It just seems to me that once we start allowing the unincorporated areas, the county, to start enforcing things, where does it stop? I mean, here we've got, starts with fireworks, then it goes with, then you can't do this, you can't do that, or I don't like that neighbor, I don't like this neighbor, so we do another law. I mean, how far are we going to go when we start opening this up? I mean, I could see if Harris County wants to do this, but I would much rather see it bracketed and then go from there. I don't want to start opening the floodgates for all this type of regulation in the county.
Representative Biederman, I don't disagree with you on that. I'm a retired Marine and a pretty strong conservative, and I think in a lot of cases less government is better government. However, I have to disagree with the premise of your argument, because the people that are in our rural counties, that are the commissioners and as are the judges, we're not doofuses. I have a master's degree. I am not going to try to push a regulation because we can't do ordinances. I can't do an order, or I'm not going to do an order just willy-nilly. I have never to this day yet put on a burn ban in our county because I really don't believe in them. I've never asked the Commissioner's Court to do one. If you're, ignorant enough to start a fire in a high wind and it burns the neighbor's hay patch down, then that's what your liability insurance is for. The only, you can with a burn ban, you can burn your own trash, but you got a rancher out there that's trying to burn a brush pile and it's wet and it's now dewy morning and he could burn a brush pile without setting his pasture on fire. It prohibits him. So these are the kind of things that are common sense, and I don't think that very many, if any, rural commissioners' courts are going to go out and start passing orders that are just for the sake of passing an order. If they do something, it's because it's needed.
The problem is needed by who? Who makes that decision? Who makes the decision?
The
in these
elected
areas?
officials.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How can they make the decision for a homeowner who says, I don't want this next to me, or I don't want this to happen? I mean, if we start giving more authority to regulate, that's what's concerning to me. And we do have burn bans, and we do have county commissioners and county judges that may not be as conservative, as honest as you might be. So I can tell you that right now. And they may not be as fair as you are. And there definitely are problems, just like Representative Springer said, where they don't like somebody, they could take it out on you. And that happens regularly.
I mean, I don't disagree with you.
So all
I
I'm
see it
saying is,
happen.
I'm just very concerned that if we start doing this, I would rather see this bracketed. I don't want to see this in my county. And if it starts becoming a problem and we see it works in Houston, that'd be a great way to say, okay, maybe we can go statewide. But to do statewide and start opening the floodgates for things like this, what's next? You know, what what things are going to be next out in the counties? And that's what's I don't want to have happen.
Well, I just don't want to ever see our legislature complain about the federal government coming down and dictating what to do and what not to do and when and how, and not afford the counties the same courtesy. We are the lowest form of state government that there is out there. We are the ones that are the closest to the people.
I know, but we move in the county because we don't want your rules. We move in the counties.
He is the county, no,
Right.
the city.
What's that?
You mean the city, we move out of the city.
We move out of the city in the counties.
Right.
So we move in the counties.
Right.
For that reason. We don't want to have the rules.
I understand. But that's my whole point, is that now I don't want the Austin legislature to turn around and direct the counties of what is best for the people in our county, because I'm the closest ones to them. I represent them.
Well, that's what this is doing. This is the state of Texas telling.
It's an option.
I know, but we don't.
It's an option.
I know, but this is just going to open it up. I live in the county because I don't want to have the rules. And if somebody moves next door to me and does something I don't like, well, that's just how it goes.
You go over and beat it behind and.
That might be.
I wish we had more of that.
Can I say something? I think it's really important.
Sir, it's your committee. I think you can say
well,
whatever you
no,
want to.
I think it's important we have different points of view. But the way this state was set up was that you are coming to the state where you need the state to say, yes, you can. And you're coming here because that's the way the county-state system was set up in certain areas. And we're not telling you all what to do. The counties are coming in asking us to allow them to do these things. Sometimes it's one individual county. Sometimes it's all the counties. But the reality is that that's required. Unfortunately, for some people think, and having been sitting as chair of this committee for a little while, most of what I hear is they wish they had the ability to have grace over some things because subdivisions have fallen apart because there was no way to regulate what went in to build streets and build homes and things that quite frankly, if people had it to do another way, they would have hoped that would have been done. So I agree that somehow there's this idea that in counties, but I think that what's happening in Harris County is, at least the one that I know better, is that they haven't had the opportunity. They need the state to give them permission to do things that their counterparts in the cities that are encompassed in Harris County have, and you can't be mad at them for wanting to protect the people that live in the county. And I just say that because that's how it's set up, and so they have to ask.
Sure.
Go ahead, Representative Biederman, and we'll come back to
Just
this.
real. So for myself, I mean, I don't want this for my county.
But
So I would give it to you.
But you don't know whether your county wants it.
My county doesn't want this.
How do you
Now,
know?
county officials do, because I talk to them all the time.
Okay.
Our county doesn't. If I was a county official, I would like to have more powers because you're getting complaints from people. Okay? But we have That's why we live in the county, because we don't want to have these rules.
That's why you live in the county.
That's right. That's
That may
why
not
most
be-
of us.
They may not be why everybody else lives in the county.
But I live there. I know what the
No,
people
you
want.
live there, but have you taken a poll?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Bring your
that's what I
poll
mean.
to me. Bring, I want to see
I'll
it.
bring you my poll. I talk to them
That all
every
of them
time.
moved to the county because they
I
don't
knocked
want
on
any-
thousands of doors and we talked about
No, that's
local
not a poll.
issues. So what I'm saying is I would vote for this for you if that's what you want, because you're the one answering to your constituents. If I bring this back to my constituents and then the county decides to really, put this, enforce it totally, they're not going to like it. So
Then vote
that's
them
all
out
I'm
of
saying.
office.
Are you Comal?
Excuse me?
Which county are you?
Gillespie.
Gillespie.
Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg.
So, Mr.
So
Chair,
that's all I'm saying. I'd
I'm
like
just
to see it
curious.
blackened.
I'm just curious because, like I said, I've been sitting here for a long time, and if the officials are not legitimate after they've been elected by the same people you've been elected by, then I don't understand. I'm confused. Representative Uresti.
Representative Biederman, I see where you're coming from as far as, a lot of people move out to the county because they don't want regulations from the city and what have you. But what's happening now, a lot of people are not living in the cities anymore. They're moving out to the unincorporated areas because they like the quiet, they like the peace and quiet and what have you. In this particular case, we have a housing development that is right next to this so-called party house, what have you. So as we look at the unincorporated areas, we're finding that they're building a lot of subdivisions in all areas of unincorporated areas, and pretty much, at least in my county, a lot of homes are being, or a lot of subdivisions are being erected in those areas. So without county control, or leaving local control, giving local control more authority, and we staying out of their business. I think that's exactly what your bill is doing.
Yes, sir. That's
Mr. Roberts.
it's the option.
Yeah, and
of
it's
being
not
able to control
taking
it.
away local control. I think it's giving more local control than taking it away. And I see what you're talking about, because when we lived out in the country, we burned our own trash. We did whatever we wanted to do. But unfortunately, when you go build a nice subdivision, then you got to get control of those that are out of control, because that can hurt that entire area as it has in this area. So that's just my 2 cents for what you were saying. That's all.
And we, like in Goliad, we don't have subdivisions. We've got some small communities, the town of Weesach and Berkeley and Charco and Sarco and all of these kind of things. It's not a subdivision in the traditional sense. And kids that are out there popping fireworks and stuff, they got their moms and dads and grandparents to deal with, the neighbors. It's not an issue. But the ability for the county to be able to say if it becomes an issue, we can do something about it, that's what makes it nice.
And it is much more dangerous when you're in an area like that, because when it's easier for a fire to catch when you're not in an inner city area, when you're out there. So it's better if you have control of that, because when you have a lot of farmland out there, a lot of people that are growing hay, what have you, it's a lot more. They're more apt to be fire hazards than there are, and that's where the big brush fires
the
start.
burn bans.
So, so it would be a plus, and that's something that we need to look at. So I think for my county, as far as Bear County, I would be in favor of it, and I think my constituents would be in favor of it, because I have small towns that are still within my district, not just
Right.
my county, but in my particular district, I have a lot of cities that are outside the city zones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For any additional questions of Judge Calhoun?
Chairman, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you for allowing me to testify.
And thank you for being here. Thanks for coming in and doing that. We really appreciate it always. Let's see. Do I have anybody else? Okay. We also have witness affirmation forms wishing to testify. Chester Davis, who is with a, and again, oh, now see, now I can't click up here.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank-
Eric Glenn,
Oh,
you
hey,
should
Eric.
have a
Cool.
a
I do
affirmation
have
for
one
me.
from you.
All right, good.
It's Eric Glenn, who is representing the Texas Pyrotechnic
Yes, sir.
Association.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Eric Glenn, and I'm representing the Texas Pyrotechnic Association. We have spoken with Representative Roberts. We told him that as the bill's filed, from everything that we've been informed about, this is more related to events and displays than it is to consumer fireworks. The way the bill is currently written, it takes in consumer fireworks as well. So we want to be able to provide them with a way. Folks do have to get a permit when they're, even in the county, they have to get a permit. From what we've been informed of is that if they're shooting 1.4 G, I don't want to get too technical, if they're shooting 1.4 G fireworks, which is a smaller consumer firework, then they don't have the ability to regulate the hours. So we want to try to work with Representative Roberts on how do we regulate somebody doing a display show and not bleed over into some kids or a family wanting to enjoy fireworks during the selling season is all. So we're going to continue to work with him on that, and we do think that there's a distinction here between just folks shooting their fireworks and between events and displays, and how can the county go about regulating the hours that somebody's doing a display, because our guys have to pull a permit when they're doing a display within the county, and it has on there a time for which it's permitted for. And so, you know, when they go in and they pull that permit, then they know if it says 9:30, they've got to shoot that show by 9:30. They might be a few minutes off, but we certainly hear, understand, and sympathize, and in the interest of time, we just wanted you to know we talked to Representative Roberts about it. We visited. We want to try to figure out how do we handle events and display shows, which is what I think that they're most attempting to get to.
And Mr. Glenn, thank you very much for working with the author, because, you know, again, you know, these are issues that you can't always, you know, but you know the people who are buying the stuff, who's doing whatever, and you can, you know, help them understand that this is a serious issue for the people in the Texas legislature.
Certainly, and you know, again, living in an area, I live in an unincorporated area of the county myself. I can certainly understand if somebody was out shooting a display show or an event late at night, and I'm not that old, and I do go to bed early too. So, and I have animals, so we're very sensitive to the issue that they're attempting to fix, and we do understand display and event type things. Those should fall under some sort of control, and apparently the issue is the type of firework that they're using. But if they're a business and they're licensed to do that, we certainly want to make sure that we give them some relief on that. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Representative Springer.
Thank you. And appreciate that very much, Eric, because I think that sort of gets to a lot of what I was even sort of going through. So, but if I heard you right, if you're doing a display show now, you are required to get a permit from the county?
You're required to get a permit from the county, and if need be, Mr. Davis can come up and tell you how he does it. But he gets a permit, and on that permit, they're asking him what he's shooting, when he's shooting.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of questions that he has to fill out on there.
Okay.
So, again, what we've been informed of is that they have some control over 1.3 G fireworks. Consumer fireworks that we're all familiar with and that we can buy, they fall into the 1.4 G category. And what we've been informed is that there is...
So you think that these event type of locations are using the 1.4s?
They're probably using the 1.4 for various reasons.
Yeah.
And it could be related to sound. It could be related to other effects, as it would be known as. So they might be. There's some reasons why some folks use 1.4. 1.3 is a bigger, and it's got a much different impact. But apparently the issue is if they're doing a display and an event and they're using 1.4, no control over the sale of the hours. And we completely sympathize and understand that.
Okay, thank you.
I only use 1.3, so I'm
I want to know how you're getting your hands on 1.3. I'm happy to answer any other questions, sir.
Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Glenn?
If not, thank you all very much.
Let's see. I don't think, do we have any more? Unless Mr. Davis wants to testify, there are no other witness affirmations to testify, but he did register against the bill, unless you want to testify. He doesn't want to testify. He didn't say it. He just did his, no, he didn't say it. He didn't say a word. And then the let's see, that's all we have registered to testify, and they all have testified. But does anyone else wish to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1183? If not, the chair calls. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna throw this at somebody. Okay, so not for the bill, not testifying. Ariana Hargrove is for the bill, registered not to testify. Mark Mendez, and she's with Texas Fire Marshal Associations. Mark Mendez with Tarrant County. Joseph Green, Travis County Commissioners Court, for the bill, does not wish to testify. Donna Warnoff for Harris County is for the bill, does not wish to testify. Jim Reeves is for the bill, does not wish to testify. Casey Henney, state firefighters, and Reeves with the Farm Bureau. State Firefighters and Fire Marshals Association, registered, does not wish to testify. And T.J. Patterson with the City of Fort Worth, for the bill, does not wish to testify. Now, if there's anybody else who this computer knows does not wish to testify and is either for or against the bill, would it tell me now? It didn't say anything. Well, where are they? Okay. There are more. Romero Gonzalez Jr. Is against the bill, does not wish to testify. He's with Mr. G's Fireworks. And Carl Isett with the Texas Pyrotechnic Association is against the bill, does not wish to testify. Now, is there anyone else that the computer has, and the computer, would you tell me, that is here to testify, but here to not testify on the bill? So the computer is telling me no, or sort of. And is there anyone out there who does not wish to, who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1183? Would they please let us know now? Hearing none, the chair calls.
We meant to be registered for the bill.
Okay.
Okay. Shanita Carter,
you need to come up.
Actually, he doesn't, because he's not registered. So what you have to do now is register, afterwards, and then register that, and that you did testify. You are here, but it just says register, not testify. Why that? We still haven't gotten the kinks out of this yet, Don.
Well, unfortunately, this probably has something to do with my prior testimony. Don Lee, Texas Conference of Urban Counties, and we'd like to be shown in favor of the bill.
Okay. You are shown in favor of the bill?
And my form will be in very quickly.
Okay. You're good. You don't have to, you're good. We'll fix it. Because I must have passed over you for some reason. All right. We'll say it again. Does anybody wish to testify on, for, or against Representative HB 1183? Okay. Since there isn't anyone, we recognize you to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me state that I am all about public safety, local control, and individual rights, and I will look forward to working with Mr. Davis and Mr. Glenn in addressing the specific issue that my community has. But Representative Biederman, to your points, I am all for your rights. I assume that's why you moved from New York to the great state of Texas, was to have some rights. But at the point one's rights infringe upon another one's, you lose those rights, okay? I am willing to buy, you're in an unincorporated area, right? I'm willing to buy your neighbor's fireworks for every weekend for a year to pop at midnight or later, and you tell me at what point it becomes a nuisance. Because I agree, I'm totally agreeable about not suppressing and not over-regulating, but there's a point that a quality of life has a balance with others' rights. And that's why I made this an optional bill, because like you said, not everyone will need the bill. But in the communities that have this extreme need, there has to be a tool, a mechanism, which there is not one now. And I think the greatest accountability exists. I trust the folks in the community. If a rogue commissioner or commissioner's court gets out of hand, that community is going to go to the ballot box and they're going to influence and have their voice at that point in time. Again, it's just a tool in the toolbox if the commissioner courts have the need. And the majority may not have that need, but I will tell you that having gotten calls, having sat in community meetings, we have a need, and I will fight to ensure that that need is met and create good public policy that still allows you to have your right and others, but it is necessary, it is needed, and I will fight for it. So I would ask for your favorable consideration, Chairman.
Representative Springer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. You've heard some of sort of mine in there from a timing standpoint, and I can understand it. And listening to the testimony, and everybody really for that had issues was obviously from Harris County in there. But then again, I realize that some of these large counties are starting to go out and they're expanding beyond. And this is where I sort of pull it. I had my staff bring me my handy dandy bracketing card. 16 counties, 65% of the people live in 16 counties in the state of Texas, and that's over 300,000 people. And if you get over 250,000 people, it's 75% of the state of Texas lives in those just handful of few counties. And it's one of those where I think, and especially trying to now better understand this difference between 1.3 and 1.3 and 1.4s and display deals. From that aspect, I would hate to think that something could be changed in there, and would like to see it be for those larger counties to give them that ability, and where that bracket line draws in there. I'm happy to work with you on it, and hopefully
and Representative, you were very courteous, and we talked on the floor.
That's right.
We appreciate it, but I'm going to tell you, if we want to do this, we're going to do it. I'm just going to tell you, if we want to do this, we're going to do it.
I know.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Oh, no. And that's what I'm saying, Chairman. Is I
understand, but I don't need your permission.
I know you don't.
Okay, good. I want to be clear.
No, yes, sir. I understand that. So, and we have
a reasonable approach, and we have had very good conversations. A reasonable approach that specifically addresses the need at hand, I'm for.
Absolutely.
But something that negates the legislation, that doesn't solve the need, I don't want to infringe on anybody else's. I mean, my job is not to represent. I mean, you have very unique needs, and I appreciate it growing up in Amarillo. So the answer is I will work with you.
No, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Anybody else have a comment?
Well, thanks for considering that, Representative Roberts. Again, I want you to have it. If I lived where you live, I would be hearing from those people. See, basically, where you live in an unincorporated area, you're living basically in the city. My unincorporated area is rural, very rural. So that's what I'm saying. If we could bracket it, that would be fantastic. I know that you need to represent your people. But, our people don't want necessarily to have these yet. Now, one of these days, unfortunately, we may be in your situation. But we'll see how things work, and you'll already have laid the path for us. We just don't want to be there yet. I don't want to open the floodgates for too much regulation in the counties, especially in the rural areas. But I know you need it because your rural area or your county or unincorporated area is much different than mine. So if you'd consider that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, we've asked, and if that's all the comments, then we'll leave House Bill 1183 pending in front of the committee. The chair calls up House Bill 1756.